This segment is an update on our Michigan Historical Marker program. As you recall, Michigan Magazine visited with Laura Ashlee, who had just finished editing the latest edition of a guide to Michigan's historical markers called Traveling Through Time. This guide, listing over 1,000 of Michigan's historical markers and their locations, was published by the state's Bureau of History, the Michigan Department of State, and the Michigan Historical Commission. The book lists hundreds of places in Michigan that had historical significance, but Laura Ashlee was quick to point out there has never been an underwater marker. Even though Michigan's rich history extends into the waters of our Great Lakes, Michigan has hundreds of shipwrecks that haven't been properly recognized with an historical marker, such as the Edmund Fitzgerald, the Superior City, the Myron, the Regina, and until recently, the Sport, which was Michigan's first underwater historical marker.
That is a marker that we are working on with some people in Lexington, Jim and Pat Stair, who are dive charter people. They're scuba divers. And we got together and we decided that it was important to begin to recognize our underwater resources. So I'm working with the state archaeologist, John Halsey, and the Stairs, and we're going to erect a marker underwater on a shipwreck.
This is a first, correct?
It is.
It is a
well,
first.
It is a first for Michigan.
For Michigan.
And since I'm always careful about saying things that aren't well documented, I can't say for sure that it's the first underwater marker, but it is the first state of Michigan marker.
Okay. Could you explain that and what boat or what ship that's going to be on?
Sure. It's going to be on a tug called the Sport, which is located about 3 miles out from Lexington. It's in 50 feet of water, which is a reasonable and safe depth for sport divers and novices like myself.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yes.
At that depth, most divers or no divers can go down and see it.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted it to be something that I would feel comfortable diving on myself, so that was one of the requirements.
I would imagine that you will be one of the parties that will take place, that will go down there and check it out, this historical marker.
Yes, I think so.
The tug sport does have a very rich and colorful past, as diver Jim Stair relayed to us on a recent diving exposition we were invited on.
The Sport was built in 1873, and it was the first iron that came out of the Jackson mines, and it was mined by the Bessemer process. It was a brand new way of doing it. Kirby was the guy that architected this wreck, and he became very well known in the Great Lakes for his ships and things. This is a picture of the Sport underwater. As she lies today, you'll notice that the wheelhouse has come off on her. Again, she was built in 1873, and she was served very well until 1920. This particular tug, by the way, is where they took the diver that was named Baker that went out on the upside-down mystery ship that they called it in the 13th Storm, and they came out there and found out that it was called, instead of the Regina like everyone was saying, it was the Charles Price.
Well, I'll be darned.
And this was the boat they did that off of in 1913. Well, it was coming up here in with a southeast gale on December 20th. December 13th of 1920, and they had a new fireman on board by the name of Jim. And there were 4 people on board. Jim got seasick, went to his bunk, didn't tell anybody, and laid down. The fires went out, the water came up, and the tug went down right here.
Could be a song written about that.
They took to their lifeboat and took them a couple hours to row into shore. They all made it. Jim hit the shore, took off, and was never seen from again.
The placing of the state's first underwater historical marker on the Sport was an historic event itself. We at Michigan Magazine were pleased to be asked by Chris Danzig to be part of this event, which drew dignitaries from throughout the state, individuals who had one thing in common: the preservation of Michigan's underwater history. On board the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Bramble, the speakers were Lieutenant Commander Joseph Bonstead of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Bramble, Sandra Clark, Director of Bureau of History and former Deputy Director of Michigan Travel Bureau, Secretary of the State Richard Austin, regarded as Michigan's official historian, Sergeant James Martindale, Department of Natural Resources, Law Enforcement Division, the Honorable John Swainson, former Governor and President of Michigan Historical Commission. Commissioners Donald Wall and Esther Gordy Edwards were also present from the Michigan Historical Commission, editor of Michigan History Magazine, Dr. Roger Rosentreter. Bureau of History divers who were involved in installing the marker were state archaeologist John Halsey, author of Beneath the Inland Seas, Michigan's Underwater Archaeological Heritage, and Michigan Historical Museum exhibits curator Scott Peters, author of both the state and National Register nominations for the sport. Jim and Pat Stair and Tim Jewell raised the money for the marker. Approximately 75 people attended the dedication. The Coast Guard's assistance was invaluable. The Bramble's crew placed the posts embedded in a half-a-ton bed of concrete on the lake bottom 2 days before the dedication, and the Bramble certainly provided a wonderful way to view the placement of the marker and the dedication ceremony. This event reflected how people, local, state, and federal agencies can all work together to accomplish something great. Well, Laura Ashlee, this must be a real fulfillment.
It really is. A lot of preparation has gone into this event, and we're glad to see it finally all come together.
So what is the next step after this right here?
Well, I guess for now we will just continue putting up more markers on land. We will accept applications for more underwater markers, but we won't be erecting any for a couple of years. We want to monitor this one and see how it holds up in the conditions.
So how long has this one been in the, through the period of where we're at right now? How long has it taken for this here to take about?
It's taken about a year, actually. Last September was when we chose the sport as the wreck that we would mark. And it's been really an ongoing effort since then, since late September of '91.
Do you foresee a lot more of these markers going, beneath into the Great Lakes?
Well, what we would like to see eventually is a marker in each of our underwater preserves. There are 9 preserves. And we hope that eventually we will have a marker in each one.
Great. Well, Laura, we wish you all the continued success that this may bring.
Thank you.
Thank you on behalf of the St. Lake Shores Preserve, Secretary of State Austin, Governor Swainson, Captain of the Bramble, crew of the Bramble, and the people on board here for making this possible today. It's very nice to have the first underwater marker on such a historic wreck, and we're pleased to have it down there.
Well, John Halsey, what was it like down there putting the first historical underwater marker in the Great Lakes?
Well, it was a lot of fun. The lighting was good, the bottom was a little stirred up, but everything went fine. The men brought the marker in on airbags, and we put it in place and tightened down the screws. It went off without a hitch.
And the very first one in the Great Lakes.
That's right.
So this is a day of historical...
It certainly is.
John, what really brought this about this day, anyhow?
Well, this was a combination of the efforts of state agencies, the DNR, the Department of State, and a lot of private citizens, charter boat operators, sport divers, and dive shop owners who contributed their time, money, and boat time to make this all happen.
So a big salute to the folks of the Great Lakes who have really put their hearts and souls into this operation.
That's right.
Thanks again, John.
You're welcome.
It was truly a beautiful day aboard the U.S. Coast Guard ship Bramble. The food was excellent and the hospitality was absolutely super. One historic day we will long remember and we're proud to be part of. A big thanks to the Bureau of History, Michigan Historical Commission, Michigan Department of State, and of course Laura Ashlee.